You know, sometimes the best way to really get a handle on a huge historical moment is to zoom way, way in on just one family. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're following the Wintringhams, a Quaker family, on their incredible journey from England to New York. Through their story, we're going to uncover the deep convictions, the amazing architecture, and yet the painful conflicts that defined one of America's most important early communities. So, let's get into it.
All right, let's start with just a number, 81. That's how old Hannah Wintringham was when she passed away in 1824. Now, today, that might not sound all that wild, but back in the early 19th century, that was absolutely remarkable.
I mean, you have to put this in perspective. This was a time of incredibly high mortality. Life expectancy was just, well, it was way lower than it is today. So for Hannah to reach 81, it tells us something really important about her life and the stability she must have found. Her long life is basically a window for us, a way to look back into a world that was changing in massive ways.
And what a life it was. Just look at this timeline. John and Hannah get married in England, then make this unbelievably brave decision to move to America with 6 kids. They land in Dutchess County, New York. Hannah lives a long, full life, but John lives just long enough to see their incredibly tight-knit community completely fractured during something called the Great Quaker Separation in 1828. Wow, they really saw it all.
So, okay, let's really dig into that journey. I mean, can you imagine packing up your entire family in the 1790s to cross the Atlantic? That was a monumental risk, just filled with uncertainty. Think about it. You're on a ship for 11 to 13 weeks, and the Wintringhams, they were smart. They specifically took a northerly route because they were trying to avoid Algerian pirates, which were a very, very real threat back then. So after this absolutely grueling voyage, they finally land in New York in 1794 and head inland to this place in Dutchess County, a big chunk of land called the Great Nine Partners Patent.
So, why there? What was so special about this place? Well, they weren't just throwing a dart at a map. They were heading for a vibrant, thriving, and already established community. This was a major hub for Quaker life in the Hudson Valley.
And this is the part you really have to understand. This wasn't some tiny remote settlement. By 1780, Nine Partners was a powerhouse. Seriously, outside of Philadelphia, this was the place to be if you were a Quaker in America. It was influential, it was prosperous, and the whole thing was built on this incredibly powerful set of shared beliefs.
And the absolute heart of that community, the physical manifestation of everything they believed in, was their meeting house, which they finished building back in 1780. This building tells a story all on its own. It was built right in the middle of the American Revolution, and the fact that it's made of brick, that was a huge statement. Brick was expensive. It cost over 800 pounds, but it sent a clear message. We are successful, and we are here to stay.
Okay, now this is where it gets really cool, because pretty much every architectural choice was a direct reflection of their beliefs. That Flemish bond brickwork, it wasn't just for show, it was meant to signal permanence. Inside, you had these big wooden posts with chamfered or angled edges. That wasn't just for decoration, it was actually a pretty clever fire safety feature designed to slow down how fast a fire could spread. The inside was super plain, totally unadorned, which was a clear statement about their belief in simplicity. And those famous sliding partitions, that was their practical solution for creating separate spaces for men's and women's business meetings.
And here is where you see how it all connects, form and function working together perfectly. See the 2 separate main doors on the outside? Well, those lead directly into the 2 different spaces created by that big sliding partition on the inside. Everything had a purpose. Everything was designed to structure how the community lived and governed itself.
But this intense focus on purpose and principle went way beyond their buildings. It shaped their moral structure too. The same community that designed its building with such care also applied that same discipline to its ethics, and nowhere was that clearer than on the issue of slavery.
This quote right here is key. Back in 1775, years before the Wintringhams even got there, the Nine Partners meeting made a decision that was truly ahead of its time. For them, opposing slavery was about to go from being a personal moral choice to being a mandatory, non-negotiable rule for the entire community.
And they laid it all out in a 10-page handwritten document. Step 1. If you owned slaves, you could no longer be a member of the meeting, period. Step 2. They set up this system of care,
where specific members would go and counsel anyone who wasn't complying to guide them toward freeing their slaves. I mean, this was absolutely radical. They were decades ahead of New York state law. They were basically writing their own moral code into law for their community.
But all that unity, all that shared principle, it wasn't going to last. In his final years, after Hannah was gone, John Wintringham had to watch as a painful split tore right through the heart of the community he had called home for so long. It was called the Great Separation of 1828. The Quakers basically split into two groups. You had the Hicksites, who were more liberal and really focused on the idea of the inner light or that direct spiritual connection. They ended up keeping the original 1780 meeting house. Then you had the Orthodox, who were more traditional, more evangelical. They got control of the famous Nine Partners boarding school, but they were forced to go and build a whole new meeting house of their own.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? It shows you just how deep and bitter this division was. This wasn't some polite theological debate. It got so bad that the Orthodox group built a brand new building right nearby because, well, they couldn't even share the same space. The community John and Hannah had sailed across an ocean to join was now literally split in two.
And yet, the meeting house is still here. It's standing today, looking remarkably like it did back in 1780. It's a powerful testament, not just to the Wintringhams' journey, but to a community that was strong enough to build an entire world based on its convictions, but also one that learned how painful it can be when those convictions start to pull in different directions.
So the story of the Wintringhams and Nine Partners really leaves us with this big question, one that feels just as relevant today as it must have back in 1828. What is it that holds a community together, when the very beliefs that once united it become the things that tear it apart?